Hello and welcome to another episode of the Drumcore Coffee Shop Podcast. I'm here as always with George. What's up, George?
How's it going?
Oh man, not too bad. How about with yourself?
I'm good. Excited to be back.
Yeah. You know, little March Madness is going on right now.
Yep, everybody's bracket is
I was gonna say
destroyed right now.
Did your bracket get busted already?
Oh yeah.
That's well. I was gonna say that's cool because that's what I usually say, but I guess that's not cool. So yeah, I mean, since our last podcast a couple weeks ago, I've had some more videos drop, and I've noticed you're keeping up on all that, and everybody I think who's seen your updates, has really appreciated you giving the little update on your on everything that you come across online.
Yeah, and I as the indoor season is actually coming to a close fairly soon, we're starting to see more of what people are creating. So George Mason dropped a really interesting what they call a visual album.
Yeah, that was
this year.
That was super cool. I liked totally dug that.
There's a group called Rhythmic Force out of Austin that put something together that I really enjoyed. It's still closer to traditional, like what we're used to, but the camera work and everything like that is really great. And I know that other groups are working on stuff that we have yet to see.
Oh yeah,
like Dark Sky Percussion is working on stuff out here. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's cool to see the creativity that's been happening outside of your traditional, what would be traditional winter drumline show.
Yeah, like we're being forced to do it a certain way, and that has created some new things.
Yes,
that we're seeing,
yes,
and that's always good to see.
Yeah, well, we're back, and
we have some unfinished business.
We do have some unfinished business, but before we get into the unfinished business, I mean, how cool is it that we actually have our previous guest is back?
Yep.
For what I call part 2, the Paradiddle Boogaloo. So without further ado, let's get right back into it with Mr. Scott Johnson, a.k.a. ScoJo. What's up, Scott?
Welcome back, Scott.
The Paradiddle Boogaloo. I like that.
The Paradiddle Boogaloo. Yeah, that's what I'm going to title this one. A little.
Someone's going to call that a hybrid someday. You know that.
Hey, if that gets named a hybrid rudiment somewhere down the line, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. I got a new mic, hopefully up in the game a little bit, so hopefully it sounds a little bit better.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. Before we get into all the good stuff, dude, how about our Raiders, man? Little free agency happened. We kind of decimated our offensive line.
Yes, we have. We got a few guys back, but I'm still, I'm not worried about the offense. We got no defense still. We got a couple defensive linemen, which is good, the pass rushers, but we still got to get some defensive backs. At least the expert that I am, which I'm not even close. I teach paradiddles for a living, but our defense is just terrible last year.
Oh yeah, I mean we couldn't shut anybody down. So
exactly, needed 30+ points a game just to be in the game. So
yeah, we'll see what happens, and we'll see. I always like the offense, so hopefully Carr gets some good weapons, and we can be like the old days and just kill people with that long ball. But that remains to be seen. And
the old days were a long time ago, too, by the way, for our Raiders, by the
way. I mean, I don't know if we want to get into the unfinished business quite yet because we're on the sports topic. Mm-hmm. And, George and I kind of reached out to a few different people. And, surprisingly enough, a lot of people will reference you with a certain sport. So, George, you want to...
Well, so, we brought up a lot of stuff last time, but we got hit up from past, Blue Devils from multiple generations asking us why we never asked about basketball and Scott's ability to hoop, especially on his home court. It's funny because, I think this was probably more so of a thing after I marched, but one of the cool things you would get to do if you made the line was go to Scott's house and try to check him, which I don't think anybody could really do.
Yeah, there's video out there too of that.
But talk about that and talk about when that started to become a really an annual sort of regular thing. And do you have a court at your house at your new place?
No, not at the new place. No, at the old house by Concord, I had a half court in my backyard.
Are you secretly from French Lick, Indiana? Is your middle name Bird, or
I've always been a basketball fan. I played a lot of pickup games down at the local club, whatever. But every year we'd have on one of the free days when everybody already moved in, usually around in May or June sometime. We just have a big barbecue at my house for all the percussion. The whole drum line would come over, and our other house was pretty special. It was only 10 minutes from Mars, which was the rehearsal field, so it was pretty local for everybody who already lived there. And I'd either barbecue something up or we just get a bunch of pizzas and I'd show drum corps videos that me and my wife have done for decades that we have going back to the 80s, and just kind of do a little Blue Devil history. But in my backyard, we did have an indoor pool. It was an endless pool. I had a putting green and had a half court basketball court, along with a fire pit and a barbecue. And it was a maxed out backyard. It was awesome. I wish I could have brought that with me when I moved up to the coast here. But so every year the guys would come over and it became a thing. Okay, who's going to beat Scott in basketball? And many have tried. It happened once. Anthony Porter, section leader, snare line, he beat me one-on-one. And my excuse to this day is I did have a broken finger and I had a splint on it, even though it wasn't my shooting hand, but I did have a broken finger. So I keep using that excuse, but no, Anthony was really good. But no, we used to play a lot. I mean, even the staff back in the day, Float, myself, we used to play basketball constantly. I mean, that was just the thing we did. So I could hit pretty good. And it's not just my home court, by the way, for all you guys out there. I'll take you on a new court. Basket's still the same height.
Wow, that's awesome.
Well, there's a nice video out there that Keelan posted of him in 2012. And here's what I would say: the full game was on display. Right? You were deadly from the top of the key. You had a low post game, which I don't think anybody was. I mean, that definitely, kids were like, "What is happening here?" Like Scott.
Well, it was first of all, it was Keelan. Okay, he's easy to get the low post on.
Right. but also you had a nice drive and kick thing going on. Like there was definitely some skills on display, so it was pretty impressive.
Well, I had to figure out how to do a fadeaway jump shot because I played Float every day. Sure. When Float lived with me for those months back in the 82, I guess it was, or 81, whatever it was, we would wake up in the morning and we'd go play basketball. That's what we would do every day. We'd go down to the park and play basketball. Just him and me. And if anybody else was there, cool. But usually it was just to get out and just do something. And Tom's pretty tall, and I had to develop a jump shot with a fadeaway just to not be blocked all the time. So Float was the one who helped me with that shot big time because I had to. I had no other choice.
I picture him out there with like this Kareem Abdul-Jabbar arms,
Tom was good too. He could hit the shots.
Doing the what's that guy's name?
Dikembe
Mutombo. Yeah. That's awesome.
But I've always been a big NBA fan. I love basketball, and yeah, my bracket's blown up too. By the way, for our NCAA friends right now, it's totally blown up. But I still got Gonzaga. I got them winning it all. So as of today, they're still in it. So still got that going.
One other thing real quick before we touch back on the drum stuff. Mike Rapucci wanted me to ask you about your golf cart. I guess you have some tricked out golf cart?
I have a remote control cart that carries my golf bag. I don't ride it. It's just for the golf bag, but it's a remote control. So I can actually put my bag and my wife's bag. We'll put two bags on it and we just drive it around the golf course. So we just walk and grab a club and then you can send it off to the next hole and whatever. But it's pretty cool. It's technology, and it's technology I've been trying to figure out to work inside drum corps, which we won't get into right now. But so I'm looking, it's research. So I'm doing research now with this golf cart that I bought. But during the holidays, I turned it into a wine delivery cart for my neighbors. So instead of golf clubs, I had a bottle of wine in it with a couple of glasses, and I could literally drive it. It's like a 100-yard distance. So I drove it from my driveway down to the neighbor's house and called them up, said, hey, a glass of wine outside for you. And I had it all decorated up with my iPad with Christmas music playing and the wreath on it. And so it was like this little delivery unit for wine and for the Christmas spirit. So it's done a few little duties.
That's perfect for the pandemic.
It was my COVID wine delivery unit. Yeah. Absolutely.
I was going to say, don't let the quad see that. They're going to try to put that on, roll out to the lot with one of those. That way they don't have to carry them.
Well, that's kind of, anyways, yeah. I got some stuff I got some stuff in the making right now. I'm trying to figure out for companies and what we do. But anyways, that's part of the research. Yeah, but it's fun. It's fun. It makes me walk the golf courses more because now it's, you don't have to push a cart, and I don't ride the carts anymore because I'm trying to get more exercise. So it's helping me be healthier. That's how it's my gym membership.
Hey, whatever works. I mean, yeah, that's awesome.
Get your steps in. So we had a pretty amazing response to last episode.
Oh yeah.
But that that brought up some things that we need to address, as far as like
The fact check?
the fact checking and all of that. So what came up that people wanted to discuss more?
I think one of the things I noticed was the Band-Aid being peeled back on 1985 by some of the guys that were in that line. Scott, you want to touch on that? I know you saw that thread.
I did see that thread, and on the podcast, I remember saying I wasn't there. So this is just how I remembered it and the information that I was told, at least how I remember the information that was told to me. Yeah, apparently I opened up a couple wounds, and I guess some of the guys were trying to justify the fact they went to the movies when they shouldn't have, which I still don't understand how that could have happened. But yeah, I opened up a couple of wounds there apparently. But again, this is just my memory. I'm just going off what I remember and how I was told things. Some of the things that I know I definitely made a mistake on, and I was called out on it. And I went, what? And I went back and I went, oh my God, I can't believe I actually said that or got that name wrong. But I guess in the early, when Float first showed up, my good buddy Terry Shelberg, who was the arranger, I said he got pissed off and left. Terry called me and says, I wasn't pissed off, man. I went, oh, my bad. He goes, I was just hurt. Like, okay, that's all good. I'll clarify it, but this is just my memory again. The other one, the 91 Santa Clara ending, the Decel Excel that we did at the very end. Apparently we didn't do that just for finals. I thought we did, but we did add a new ending on for finals, but I think it was the helicopter stuff after that. Because somebody called, someone had a judge's tape from like the week before, and it's that same ending with I went, oh, I guess it wasn't just finals night. But I honestly thought I knew we did something new at finals night, but apparently it wasn't that. It was the helicopter thing we added on where they pulled out that big flag. So my apologies. Fact check, you are correct. And I guess the last one, which I can't believe I did this. This is so bad. 92, when the powers that be took the drum solo away from us in the Santa Clara Vanguard. When I walked into Gilroy's office, I said some of the staff that was sitting there, and I said Gordon Henderson was sitting there. Gordon wasn't even on staff in 1992. The brass staff was John Meehan and Jack Meehan. And I still work with John. And I'm thinking, and I watched it back when I was watching the podcast, and I had to go, oh my God, did I say Gordon Henderson? Who was my go-to brass guy in the 90s and 91 with Santa Clara. And I'm going, he wasn't even on staff that year. So I totally apologize to John and to Gordon, because I know you weren't in the room, but it was just, for some reason, I just named a brass guy. So that was the wrong brass guy to name. And other than that, it's just my memory, guys. Sorry. I mean, I know there's arguments about how many actual ticks there were in the 83 line. There wasn't, I said 11 ticks. I meant 11 mistakes because we had an 18.9 out of 20. As far as that was broken down with ticks and demand and exposure to air and all that good stuff back then. Please, really? We're going to argue about that? I had the numbers right.
While we're on fact checking, I want to correct myself. It's Brandon Olander, not Brandon Oleander, and that's been on my mind this whole time, and I felt bad about that. Sorry, Brandon. I don't know if he listens or not, but I want to personally apologize. Yeah, I'm
sure he'll see it. I think I got them all. Is there more that I missed, maybe, or that people are complaining about? Or
no, that's the only one. It seems like everybody's enjoyed it so far.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And can't wait for the next round of things that people are going to, jump up and down and say, wait a minute.
Yeah, right. And, while we're on 85, dude, we never talked about your drum set playing. I didn't know you were in a Jimi Hendrix cover band. How cool is that?
Yeah, I did. I thought we didn't talk about that.
We briefly touched on it, but
you mentioned
about
that being the reason why you were away. But you behind a drum set.
It was ugly. I got to be honest. The hands were good. The drum fills were amazing, but yeah, the whole coordination with the feet and the independence totally didn't exist. I was, as a matter of fact, I was coming home from a Blue Devil rehearsal, and this is when I had a bachelor house pretty much. And I come driving up, and another guy was living with me, Don Curry, who taught the front ensemble at the time. And this was 84, 85, somewhere in there. And I drive up to my house, and there's a U-Haul parked out in front, and there's this family in my house. And this was my house. I'm going, what is happening? And I walk in, and they're friends of Don who were traveling. They decided to stop by. Well, long story, but they ended up living there for a while. He became a prison guard at San Quentin because that was his training. He was a Green Beret in Vietnam and all the stuff. This guy, Randy, was his name. So he hooked me up with Buddy Miles, who was the original drummer for Jimi Hendrix back in the day. And Buddy Miles was at a Clayton Valley prison They called it the Clayton Camp or Clayton something. And I would pick Buddy up from the Clayton Ranch, which was close to Concord. So I'd pick him up and drive him into Sausalito because he would have leave like once a week to escape for a couple of days or whatever it was, parole, whatever you want to call it. And then I have to drive him back to the ranch. But since I lived out in that area, so I became his drum tech, his drum roadie. And I was literally tuning the drums for him. They were going to do this big tour, remake of Jimi Hendrix with a Jimi Hendrix imitator, guitar player named Randy Hansen, who was from Seattle, amazing guitar player. And he was imitating Jimi Hendrix. They got the original drummer. They got Tony Saunders, who was the bass player for Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. And it was a three-piece, which is what Hendrix always was. And I was the drum tech. And the night before the first concert they were going to do at the Kabuki Theater in San Francisco, thousands of people, Buddy Miles screwed up his parole, and they wouldn't let him out. So literally, it's the day before rehearsal, waiting for Buddy to show up. Someone else was bringing him that day, and they got the word that he's not coming, he can't come, the concert can't be done. And Randy looks at me, the guitar player, goes, "All right, Scott, you're in." And I went, "Excuse me?" I'm not a big, I never listened to Hendrix back in the day. I have now, but back in the day, I didn't, it wasn't my go-to music. So it was a crash course on, okay, you're going to learn all these charts. And I literally played that concert the next day by myself without, it was just me and the bass player and the guitar player for thousands of people who were really upset that it wasn't Buddy Miles drumming, but some, young white guy they never heard of. And there was a tour set up that was all summer long, Band of Gypsies remake. And Buddy Miles was supposed to go on that tour. Well, since he screwed up the parole, the tour was canceled. They said, let's do it with Scott. Nobody knew who Scott Johnson was in that world of rock and roll. So we actually got Mitch Mitchell, who was the other drummer from England who played with Jimi Hendrix for many years after Buddy. Buddy did like 1 or 2 years, and then Mitch Mitchell did the rest of the career with Jimi Hendrix. So Mitch Mitchell came aboard, and I would usually play like the first set and a half maybe, or maybe just the first set, and then Mitch would come out and do the encore in the last set. He was getting a little bit older at the time and whatever, but he was the name so we did the tour. So yeah, 1985, I did a whole major rock and roll tour, and then jumped on board for DCI.
I was going to say, you got to play Voodoo Child. How cool is that,
It was very cool, yeah. And I drum chorized it a little bit, because I had fast hands, so I could play stuff around the drums that, the machine gun shots that were in one of the Hendrix charts, I would double the speed of it and whatever, just to have fun. But yeah, the whole coordination thing, I never really pursued it that much. So it was all about the hands and the drum fills and just keep time, hopefully.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it was fun.
So we didn't, something else that we didn't really dig in on, and we can, or we don't have to if you don't want to, but I know that doing I&E was really important to you,
Extremely.
And I want to say that was around the same time that Rob Carson was probably the other really big name of doing I&E. But it's something that, I wanted to bring it up because of the people that we reached out to in between last podcast and this one was Brandon Olander. And he brought up I&E and how you would talk to him about kind of like the way it used to be. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about doing I&E back then? And because obviously it was an important thing for you.
Yeah, it's very important to me. I did I&E or snare solo, I should say. Every year I was in DCI. So that's the 4 years with Blue Devils and 1 year with the Royal Commodores before that. And before that, I did it every year at California State Championships, which was the little small circuit shows that we had in California State. My first individual solo, I was 4 years old. And we have pictures of me with a snare drum cut off because it was too long for me. So my dad literally cut the drum in half. and I did snare solos. And I honestly think I went up against Rob Carson when I was 4. I think Robbie was like 5 or 6 at the time because we kind of grew up side by side in the Bay Area, and I never beat him. That was one of my things, and I love him to death today, but I never beat Rob Carson. He beat me every year he went out. The 1 year he didn't go out, the year that I was really good was 77. I won DCI individuals in 77. That's the 1 year Robbie didn't go out. So I don't know if I would have beat him that year. I keep thinking I would have, but who knows? Because every year he did go out after that, he would beat me. But no, I was totally into individuals every year. I took first one time. I took third 5 times or 4 times or whatever it was. So it was either the third or first with me. And I've helped a lot of guys, a lot of the guys who come through the line after me. And I always say, because the way Rick Odello, who was our instructor at the time when I was doing snare solos, what I loved about it, it was he didn't want to participate unless we asked. He said, "No, this is your thing. It's all good," you know. So it was very individualized. It was very personal for just the performer, and I tried to carry that with all the guys that I've taught since then. And you know, if they ask for help, I'm going to help them. If they don't ask for help, you know, you're on your own, guys. And I tell them that. I go, you know, if you want help, I could help you, but if you don't want any help, I completely understand. It's your gig, you know. The biggest difference between the 70s, for example, and today, um, the equipment's a lot different, obviously. But more important, I mean, back when I did it, it was just speed. Who was faster? That was the gig. Who was faster? You know, who could play whatever faster? And you had to do the long roll, open and close, you know, back in the day, which you don't have to do anymore. So everybody had the compulsory you had to do, and then you did your solo. Nowadays, it's a lot different. It's a lot more cool effects. It's a more almost you need a theme, you know, throughout your solo to be competitive, to have a musical theme. But back then, it was just purely speed, pretty much. We always joke you had to have a musical section in there, which means you had to play a couple buzz rolls, then you were good to burn again. So that was kind of the joke back in the 70s. So it's a lot different now, but I'm really glad that System Blue took over the individuals and I&E for DCI because DCI was canceling it, you know, and we were a big supporter of that. And Dave Gibbs at the time, who was the executive director for Blue Devils, reached out to me and I said, yes, please keep it going. You know, I think it's such a great avenue for individuals, for people just to perform, you know, whatever it is, and just the creativity that you have to do to be an individual. I thought I thoroughly enjoyed it when I did it, and I know the kids today enjoy it, so I push it as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, Blue Devils has been a consistent presence, you know, throughout the history of the entire thing, and I'm glad to see that because it's hard for most groups. Because I remember you talked about one of your Santa Clara stories about the pain of having to rehearse with so many people missing for doing the showcase. But what you just referenced is that there's value beyond just the individual, like go and see how you do. There's value in the experience that seems like it's really important, and also just learning how to perform, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the journey, you know, just the journey on when you start writing a solo or start figuring out what you want to play to the very end, you know, I think it's a huge educational thing that everybody should do.
I know that the one year of I&E that really sticks out to me was '87, and how Blue Devils had like the top three, like all four guys that went out. You had like one guy did an exhibition, and then they placed 1, 2, 3, you know, in placings. And you know, the other thing that sticks out is how in the 2000s, which is something we're going to get into, how Tim Jackson won 4 years in a row. But other than that, I haven't totally kept up with. Have there been some really memorable years as far as Blue Devils and I&E, or I&E in general, that stick out to you at all?
Um, yeah, I mean, I try to get to because the rest of the core rehearses during I&E, you know, back when we have, you know, I think it's still on, it used to be on Wednesdays of DCI week, and the rest of the core would stay back and rehearse. So the I&E guys, they're on their own. You know, they don't have crowd support as far as their own people, like it was when I did it. When I did it, the whole core went, you know, because it was a big event. Everybody went to the individual stuff, and that happened for years. But we started to realize we need to rehearse more. So the rest of the core usually stays back and rehearses. But I would always try to get there. I would always try to go support the guys and do whatever I can and help them out if I needed to or whatever. I'll be their roadie, whatever. But you know, the ones that I remember, Keelan was friggin' ridiculous as far as just speed. Yeah, Nat Baruch from the 80s was pretty amazing. I mean, Steve Campbell got the perfect 100 in 86. Ivan Pacheco playing with his elbow, which is still, I'm not a big fan of gimmicks, but it worked. It was awesome for him. And that's Ivan. Ivan's, you know, that's his character. It's perfect. And then you got, you know, the guys of today, Brandon Olander, who's, you know, just Mr. Control. I mean, the technique is ridiculous, and the sound quality he gets and the speed as well. It's like, no, I'm a firm believer of individuals. I love it. Just the whole creative aspect that someone has to do by themselves, I think, is really, really strong.
That's cool. Hey, I wanted to ask you too. This last week, I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but at least here in California, we kind of lost a big name in the percussion world with the passing of Don Silva from the Freelancers. You have any thoughts on Don? I mean, did you know him personally?
Absolutely, absolutely. I knew Don very well. Yeah, I reached out when I heard the story, when I heard he passed, and reached out to a couple of really good friends who were in Sacramento that speak to Don every day. And matter of fact, the service is going on right now. It's today. And it's a very private service. They wanted family only because of the COVID. But yeah, he caught COVID, and it was complications from what he was dealing with before. And it was pretty sudden, apparently. But no, Don, he taught the Blue Devils. People don't know that. He was one of the first Blue Devil instructors back before I was there, early 70s, 70, 71. I mean, he went to the Blue Devils. He was there. He taught the Capitol Airs, which was an all-girl drum corps in Sacramento before they became the Capitol Freelancers, and then later the Freelancers. So I grew up with all those guys. So I knew Don Silva. He was the drum guru in California for many, many years back in those early years, for me at least. So it was extremely sad that, extremely sad he passed away this past week.
Yeah, I know he had a large impact on all the freelancer people that
huge.
Marched under him. Yeah, and they love him to death. And my heart goes out to all those guys because I know how close they all were with him. Yeah.
Well, and talking to some of the guys, I was saying, okay, I know the family just wants to do a special service. I go, but we're going to have a party. We have to, when all this is over with, we're going to get together and celebrate.
That's awesome.
Celebration of life.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Absolutely. And he had a great life too. He had a pretty cool life.
Yeah.
Drumming his whole life. Absolutely.
So before we actually dive into the particulars of picking up where we left off last time, something that I guess we just assume that people know, and maybe there's a certain amount of the audience that gets tired of hearing about it, but Blue Devils has won championships how many times now? 18, 19? 19 times?
19.
And they have 14 percussion titles.
No, 13.
13 percussion titles. And you brought up something when we were talking off screen last time, of something that you were proud of. The fact that every year as caption head that the Blue Devils has won percussion, they've won full core.
Correct. Since 94.
Since 94.
When I became caption head
Do you want to talk about what that means to you, and just like because obviously you're more involved than just the percussion side. You're involved also in the big picture and stuff like that. But just that consistency of excellence and why that's important.
Yeah, sure. First of all, I've been very fortunate to literally be in the right place at the right time, to be involved in all 19 of the Blue Devil rings, the World Championships. And I do have 14 percussion titles, 13 with Blue Devils, 1 with Santa Clara in 91 when we won that. So that was my other one. But when I became captain in 94, and this gets back to my sports mindset, I guess. I mean, I'm the ultimate team player. What's best for the team? What's best for the organization? And I tell that to the guys all the time. The best thing for the organization is what? Is it make sure that roll's clean, or is it make sure we get this effect upstairs, whatever? And every year that we've won percussion since I've taken over 94, we've won the ring that same year. So the drum corps has won every year we've won percussion. And what does that mean? It means that, hopefully it means that we don't have the blinders on as far as captions. The caption awards, and it's not just, it's not about the caption awards. We're getting back to that. It's about the championships. It's about the full organization being successful. And I've always thought that. I've always been a believer about that since I've taken over, and it just worked out that way. It wasn't really planned. I got to be honest. It's not like we said, okay, the corps is going to win, but the drum line's not. I mean, no, we want to win drums too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we'd love to win every caption. To me, one of my favorite years, and I know we're getting ahead a little bit, but I think was it 17? I think it was 2017. We were second in every caption as far as the brass, color guard, percussion. I don't know about visual, maybe not visual, but we were second in every caption, and we won the show. We won the championship by a point, which nowadays is huge. A point is like, oh my God, it was a devastating, just a huge spread. And we were second in every caption. And I know this is really weird. I'm going to sound, but I love that. I thought that was awesome because everybody, it wasn't about the captions, man. It was about what's going to be the best thing to get the best number for the whole organization. So, yeah, that's one of my proudest things is every year we won percussion, we won DCI.
And I think that also speaks to, because you can show your value as a section of the ensemble in different ways. And I think what's clear is that, when a certain piece of the ensemble shines, like enough to win a caption award or something like that, they're also shining in a way that's going to help everybody.
Yeah, that's the team player, right? You want the best thing for the organization, not just for your own little section. So, yeah, no, been very fortunate. Been very fortunate.
Hey, before we move on, I know we're still a long time on kind of old stuff, but the iconic exercises like Martian, Mambo, and Ditty, you've been there when they were performed. Well, can you remember what it was like when they came out? I mean, like, because they were kind of different than anything you'd ever heard in the past. I mean, do you remember it all?
Oh yeah, of course I do. But it wasn't as iconic as it is today. I mean, literally back then we're just learning beats. Hey, Kevin wrote this thing. Okay, well, there's no tenor part. Okay, I'll write a tenor part to it. We'll add this. So we had this thing that called the Ditty, and it was just something to play. It was an exercise. It was something to play that had a theme. And that's all it was at the time. And then as it's lived on through history, it's become this thing, just like Martian Mambo, just like Electric Wheelchair, which is basically Legend of One Eyed Sailor at the beginning of that Murray did back in the day. All these things that are living on, which is awesome. I mean, I think it's great, obviously, but at the time it was something to do. It was something to get better at. So it wasn't like we were thinking, okay, we're going to write this and we're going to sell it 20 years from now for $9.99. I mean, that wasn't the mindset at all. It was just something to do, clean beats. So I never really thought about the history of what these things would ever become. I got to be honest, I never had that thought process. I think it just happened. You guys are the ones. I mean, the fans, the people who live on YouTube are the ones who make it what it is, right?
Yeah. What about you bring up Electric Wheelchair? The little known fact that there was a second part that was called Funk It. And that's something you wrote, correct?
FUNK, by the way, Funk It as in funky music. Yeah, it's a cadence that I wrote, I guess around that same time, maybe a little before that. And we kind of attached it onto Electric Wheelchair, or Murray did, I should say, because we taught it in the Santa Clara, I don't even remember what year it was, 90, 91, or
It's 90. Yeah, I think 90.
90? Okay. Yeah, and so I handed it out to the guys and we learned it. And, and again, I wrote that because it had some different vocabulary that we can practice and get better at. Some split roll stuff, some other little things all over the place, just stuff that we weren't used to playing in regular music, just to enhance and, vocabulary. What can we play different? So that's why I did that. And then Murray, actually, they tied them together. I don't remember exactly. I don't know if I did it or Murray. Somebody did it. We just put them together. It's all right. Let's play this together. And so it was a longer piece originally before Electric Wheelchair became what it is now, right today. But yeah, it was just this whole thing we did just to get our hands loose and to play different stuff.
You still have the original written down somewhere?
Maybe somewhere. I'm not sure. I'm sure I do somewhere. Yeah.
I want to say Kevin Erickson posted a copy of it, but I was just curious if you had the original. Like I know Murray said he has the originals of all his stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've got, unfortunately, binders and cabinets full of drum music, mostly written by hand, from back in the day that I just filed away and haven't opened it for literally decades. So I'm sure it's around somewhere.
I feel like...
Don't make me find it.
I feel like Robert is going to, before it's all said and done, he's going to track down all these originals, put them all in the same place. And then like 1,000 years from now, civilization's going to dig them up and they're going to be like the new Dead Sea Scrolls.
Oh, I'm going to have like a long hallway with the lasers come up at night so nobody breaks in, and they're going to be behind UV glass all matted up, and, my display of drum music.
1,000 years from now, people will find that stuff and say, who cares? The Paradiddles.
Don't say that. Don't you ever say that. We care.
Of course. So one of my friends is Miguel. He and I have taught a number of years. So I reached out to him, and the very important question that he wanted me to ask you was, in 2001, why did you cut off your mullet? Which led to us losing drums.
Miguelita, I apologize.
Samson.
Yeah, Miguel's one of our favorite sons, like most of you guys are. We call them sons that come through the program, or daughters. Yeah, I did go short hair that year, didn't I? I don't remember why. I would have not remembered it was that year unless you brought that up. But yeah, I don't know. Every now and then, I got to be honest. I was trying to get a hair appointment before we recorded this, because now we're in the year 2000. I was trying to get a more modern hairstyle, but our hair person canceled out on us, so I don't get a haircut till Friday. I don't know. Whatever. Trying to be different, I guess. And I apologize if the hair caused us to lose.
What's interesting about that period is, so 94 you get there, and the whole rest of the 90s feels like a real like solidifying of that identity. Like these are Scott Johnson's, Blue Devils percussion sections and full core, right? Really strengthening the identity. But then, I will say that Robert and I, our memories of that time, of that next decade, are fairly sparse, because both of us were focused more on careers, and we sort of left the band world and then got into it again sort of around like the 2010s and stuff.
Yeah.
But that period was a period of change. You guys changed drum companies. The drums steadily got a little bit lower on the body, and so the technique had to
really?
adapt. I mean, a little bit.
That.
Check this out. I was watching some old videos of 95, and I was watching like where our forearms were and our elbows compared to the drums. When we played really high stuff, like our elbows were below the rim of the drum. That's how high our drums were. And what I noticed sort of like around, like the 2000s was the drums got lower a little bit. The hands didn't necessarily get lower. So the sticks pointed down at the drums a little more. I think modern day, the hands are a little bit lower, so the sticks sit a little flatter to the drum. But that's like a slow evolution, over the years. But one of the interesting things that I like about when people talk about Miguel, and something that I've heard about him, is he really had a nice impact, and I think Blue Devil Tenorlines of that time period had a nice impact on evolving the way tenor players looked, and therefore
I couldn't agree with you more. He was. I said this back then, and I've said it since. I mean, he was the most natural-looking tenor drummer, if that is such a thing, that I've ever seen. The way he moved around the drums was it was meant to be. It's weird nothing was forced. It was just so fluid and so easy for him. It looked like, and it was like, okay, everybody do that. It looked like that, and that's still carried out today.
Yeah. And it's like, you look at those old 90, like the Sean Vega tenor lines, for example.
Yeah.
And what he was sort of born into was really being a little bit more hunched over the drums. And then steadily everybody sort of, got their chins up a little bit. But there's like his rookie, like Miguel's rookie year, he's the one tenor player who really has his chin up, not like he's trying to do it, but you're just like, that's just him. There's that element of pride and presence, which you see the effect of today, in
absolutely.
how kids play today and look today.
What always sticks with me that I can't unsee now is like back in our era, the lack of arm movement when drumming. It was all like wrist, and it was all wrist. It looks so painful now, but everything, it all got done. But
so did you? I mean, is this, changes in technique and all of that stuff, is that something that just happens over time, slowly, so almost like you don't notice the little incremental changes that happen? Or are there times when you and the staff sit down and go, we need to adjust how we're doing things?
I'd say both. I know, I'm trying to remember what year it was. Recently, 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there, sat down with the snare guys, the snare techs, and said, okay, I want to change what we're doing. I want to be able to play lower taps. I just thought we weren't sounding very musical because of the equipment we're playing on, as far as the way the drum heads were and everything else. So I was trying to get us to sound more musical, by lowering the taps and by raising the accents. And when we play an accent tap exercise, it needs to be this now not what it was last year, where it's just you're relying on the heights to make the sound. But it was more, we're going to use more forearm, we're going to do this. So we did make a couple conscious efforts to change technique, as far as that's concerned, and mainly for the snares. The bass and tenors really didn't need to change, but it was that snare voice that we were just trying to get to be different and a little more modern, I guess you could say. A lot of the other ones, little small ones, that either comes from the members, or from the snare techs themselves, the guys who are running. I think we should try this, and it's like, yeah, sure, give it a shot, see what happens. But so it's a little bit of both. But we have made a few efforts we need to change the way we look and the way we sound right now. So that has happened, yes.